This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
As you can tell by the betting markets for Super Bowl 59, we've got a projected tight matchup here between the Chiefs and the Eagles. And it is my belief that when things are that tight, individual matchups can make a massive difference, because if it's a tight game, those little things can move the needle in a pretty massive way. Today, we're going to talk about those matchups that could matter for the Chiefs versus the Eagles by talking to Austin Swaim, getting his thoughts on which matchups matter for this game, both for the Chiefs offense and the Eagles offense, and then identify some markets that Austin likes based on those at FanDuel Sportsbook. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research. Joined here, as mentioned, by Austin Swaim. You can check him out on both X and Blue Sky at Swaim3. Find his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior editor for us. Austin, happy Super Bowl week to you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jim, and I'm glad it's you and I doing this show today, get together, because we're a couple former linemen, and usually we have our hair on fire, right? We're figuring out passing efficiency, we're looking at target shares, but when we have an island game like this in 2 weeks to prepare for it, we're looking at offensive line matchups, we're looking at pass rush metrics. Like, this is you and I Super Bowl in a quite literal sense with the actual Super Bowl, so it'll be fun to dive into matchups with you today.
The two cover boys for this show on YouTube are Jalen Carter and Chris Jones. And I gotta say, Austin, I am ecstatic I did not make it as an offensive lineman, because I would not want to face those two men, because they could have an outsized impact on this game. So yes, we are former linemen, emphasis on former, and I am very, very happy that it wound up being that way.
Yeah, I played D-line though, so I like Chris Jones and Jalen Carter. It's
so you're not facing Trey Smith. You're not facing Lane Johnson.
Joe Tooney gives me nightmares. You know? Yeah, Joe Tooney gives me nightmares.
Yeah, Joe Tooney giving you nightmares. I think that there are just a lot of very scary men involved in this game on both sides. Frankly, both offensive lines are phenomenal. We're gonna break down what matchups matter for Austin and then identify. Okay, that's the baseline. Here's the matchup, and then say, okay, what does that mean for betting? And try to identify bets based on those matchups for this game. Then we'll dive into other bets Austin likes for Chiefs versus Eagles later on. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. 5 shows across this week. I already broke down my thoughts on the money line, the total, implied team total, or a team total that I like, a first drive bet that I like. That went up yesterday, breaking down my thoughts on that. That is on the Covering the Spread podcast feed right now. Tomorrow at noon, I'm going to talk through some SGPs, same game parlays I like at FanDuel Sportsbook, that all play well together. Some correlation will play into. Make an assumption to decide, okay, what bets are more likely to hit if I make this assumption. On Thursday, going to have a twofer. Both Dr. Ed Feng and Megan Payton will join me 2 p.m. Eastern, breaking down their top player props for this week. And then Friday at 10, Annie and Nader will swing by and talk about some novelty props, but also Annie's favorite props, some same-game parlays and stuff like that, too, on Friday. So a loaded week here on the show. To get those shows as they are posted, search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. And of course, these shows do stream live on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page, along with our DFS show, which will be 10 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, with myself and Brandon Gadula talking about our full thoughts on the single game slate. Go to the YouTube page, subscribe there, turn on notifications, and leave us a thumbs up. We appreciate those of you watching on YouTube. As always, the FanDuel Kick of Destiny is back, and this time it's Every Manning for himself. This Super Bowl, 2 legends will take the field in a sudden death field goal showdown. Peyton versus Eli, live from New Orleans. One kick to claim ultimate family bragging rights. Who will rise to the moment? Pick your winner now in the FanDuel app. And if you back the right brother, you're going to share $10 million in bonus bets. It's a FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3. Make your free pick. And don't forget to tune in to watch the showdown live during the Super Bowl 59 pregame show on Fox at 3 p.m. Eastern. May the best Manning win. FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. No purchase necessary. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Austin, this is not the rundown, but who you got, Eli or Peyton in Kick of Destiny 3?
I'm going to take Eli. I think his dream comes true.
Okay, I believe in Eli. I have not decided yet where I settle in. I think Peyton Manning is a complimentary psychopath. I'm worried about his competitiveness. So I'm still deciding, leaning a bit towards Peyton, but I got to pick people's brain because I don't know personally. That is very scary for me. Okay, let's talk top level here about this game, Austin. Chiefs versus Eagles. What's your overall view of this game? We have seen a bit of movement towards the Eagles. Their money line now plus 102 at FanDuel Sportsbook, whereas it was plus 106 yesterday.
I think if we were going to talk about likability of the two teams, we might want to talk about UFC 312 instead with me. But if I put that aside, I think these are the two best teams from each conference after the Lions' rash of defensive injuries. It was super unfortunate what happened to Detroit. The Chiefs bring arguably a top 10 defense in most metrics, and their offense gelled and improved so much this year. All these little parts and pieces they picked up really came together for them. And I think the Eagles probably have the most stacked 1-53 roster in the league, two elite high-profile coordinators, and oddsmakers really confident we're getting a competitive game here, which is kind of a stark contrast from historic Super Bowl trends. Like, I don't know if people know 58.7% of Super Bowls have been decided by double digits. Some of them have been very lopsided. We've had 3 straight decided by a field goal, and oddsmakers are saying, hey, this one's going to come down likely to the final possession again. I myself am rooting for a blowout. I'd like to just chill. These have been very stressful.
What?
It might be fine to mix in a blowout every now and then, but
no,
I don't think it's going to
get out of here. Come on. What? You want a blowout? I don't want to be relaxed. I don't get to be okay. I can kind of understand it because like Daytona 500 is next week, and that's the most stressful like 4 hours of my entire year every year. But I need one last thrill this year. We don't get to watch Super NFL again until August, and that barely counts. So like I need like, for cardio reasons, I need that sweat. I want my heart. I want my watch telling me, "Hey, bud, chill out." Like I need that at some point during this game.
Yeah, I see the argument for it. It's just been a while, man. I remember the Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl party. We were playing like board games and stuff.
Yeah.
That game was like 35 points apart. It was kind of fun, but I'm with you. I don't think we're gonna get a blowout in this one. When I look at these two teams, It came down to 3 points a couple years ago. Like the Mahomes Chiefs always seem to find a way to keep things interesting, which is always good for us as well.
Yeah. I was kind of joking about the watch thing, but I did get that notification during a Daytona 500 a couple years ago. Like, hey, are you all right? And then they showed Denny Hamlin's heartbeat, and it was like 40 beats per minute lower than mine. I was like, okay, might have a problem here. Either that or he's not alive. I don't know. Who can say? It's either or in that situation. So we're going to root for a close game. I am vetoing you, overruling you in that regard. Now, from a matchup perspective, Austin, let's begin things here when the Chiefs offense has the ball. Which matchups stand out most to you? We've got the Chiefs offense facing a very, very good Eagles defense.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I think where the Super Bowl a couple years ago was decided, I think it was on this side of the ball where in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, Philadelphia as a team had 15 more sacks than anybody in the league. They didn't get any on Patrick Mahomes. There was some footing issues in Arizona a couple of years ago. Consistent turf in New Orleans won't be an issue. But the problem is this Eagles team is very different than that one was. They were just 26 in pressure rate, according to Next Gen Stats. So I think the key matchup to watch here is Patrick Mahomes' ability to extend plays opposite this Eagles front seven. The Eagles may not be able to sack him. He's one of the hardest quarterbacks to sack in the league. But is he able to extend plays? Is he able to get outside the pocket, create some of that magic? And the Eagles did a good job limiting what we've seen from him a little bit in the playoffs, which is quarterback rushing. Mahomes has been really willing compared to the regular season to take off. He's had 9 attempts per game in the 2 playoff games thus far. It was just 3.6 in the regular season. I think that's why the Chiefs have been harder to defend against really good defenses in the playoffs this year. So I'm not optimistic about this for Philadelphia, but I do think it's a huge point of emphasis because Mahomes posted 0.17 expected points added per drop back against bottom 10 pressure rates this year. That was 5th among quarterbacks with at least 5 starts. Against Vic Fangio defenses, he's 8-0 straight up in his career, 64 completion rate, 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They play a ton of zone coverage. And he's got a guy, number 87, in the middle that exploits zone coverage really well. They have like a telepathic connection. So I think this is very crucial, whether the Chiefs or whether the Eagles are able to contain Mahomes and eventually win the game or not.
Yeah, you mentioned the career numbers for Mahomes versus Vic Fangio. And I think those are interesting because early in his career, he was like this deep ball merchant who could just like torch people over the top. And it's like, okay, if that version of Mahomes can be good against Vic Fangio, what is the veteran version of Mahomes where he's like patient? He's willing to take the underneath pass. And that's what Vic Fangio wants you to do. And it's like, okay, I can do that and I can still beat you at your own game. And I think that's really intriguing that he's been so good against this kind of defense historically, but also is better positioned, I think, like mentally and like scheme wise to like exploit that now. So if he's had success overall, I'm kind of worried about what he could do against them in this current iteration of himself. Now, with that in mind, any bets stand out to you based on that matchup you're keying in on there?
Yeah, I love supporting Patrick Mahomes when I can. I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes 250 plus passing yards. It's an inside joke. I'm a Raiders fan. It is what it is. I'm looking at him 250 plus passing yards. It's minus 118. I went with the alternate line, which you can obtain whether you're listening this in your car on Saturday, wherever you are. If you stay at 250 plus, it's minus 118 right now. It's a great matchup for Mahomes because Philadelphia is first of all, they're a pass funnel in general, 4th ranked rushing defense in the regular season. They've allowed just 105.7 rushing yards per game in the playoffs to rushing attacks stronger than the Chiefs. And if you think the Chiefs may have a weakness right now, it might be their run game. They haven't been able to get Isaiah Pacheco going, just 3.1 yards per carry against weaker fronts. I feel like the Chiefs, we were kind of hard on them early in the season because they lost Rashee Rice and they kind of had to recalibrate who was going to play what role, what was going to do. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins. They got Hollywood Brown back. It's as if they signed him off the street that he came back from that shoulder injury. Now they kind of have everybody in the right role, and I trust Mahomes' ability to produce, and he's been absolutely dynamic in Super Bowls, 276.6 passing yards per game in Super Bowls. He's just been so good that I'm willing to go 250 plus here against an Eagles team that I think will be tough to run on.
Yeah, again, that's the alt market 250 plus at FanDuel Sportsbook, that being minus 118 at FanDuel Sportsbook as of right now. I'm also buying the passing in general personally from Mahomes. I think I prefer the volume route with the passing attempts because I'm not really sure what the efficiency will be against this team. I agree with you where we should expect him to be efficient, but 36.5 is the number for him over his plus 104. And he has gone over 36.5 pass attempts in 9 out of 12 games since the DeAndre Hopkins trade. And I think that is the most relevant sample. Like, okay, it's no longer Justin Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and whoever else they may have found in the scrap heap at receiver. It's like DeAndre Hopkins may have a reduced role, but he's a legitimate NFL wide receiver, which they did not have previously. And he's gone over that pass attempt number in 9 out of 12 games since that trade. That to me says they both have the football neutral scripts. This should be a neutral script. So I think we both agree that buying into Mahomes overall is the proper way to play things here.
Yep.
Let's go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say that the Eagles pass defense, they've had inconsistent moments. I mean, overall the efficiency's been okay, but Matt Stafford lit him up for 326 yards in the divisional round a couple weeks ago. And I think in general, Mahomes is the strongest passer that they've faced in the playoffs so far. So I feel strongly about that as well.
Yep, that does make sense. So Austin is on 250 plus minus 118 from Mahomes passing yards. Let's flip it around now and talk about the Eagles offense facing the Chiefs defense. When the Eagles have the football, what key matchups are you looking at there?
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. Of course, we know Steve Spagnuolo is a mad scientist, so I'm so curious to see what he forces Philadelphia to do. It's a little bit like those old Belichick teams where you kind of wondered what they were going to take away.
Right.
I feel pretty confident that Jalen Hurts is going to regress from the NFC Championship in a passing perspective. It's the opposite of Philadelphia, where Kansas City this year 5th in pressure rate, 4th in blitz rate, and Hurts has been awful under pressure. 45.3% completion rate, 7th most expected points added, lost to sacks among the group of quarterbacks that has at least 300 dropbacks. And we got a couple offensive linemen banged up here. I'll plug your piece that went live on FanDuel Research about matchups yesterday. Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson not feeling great, even though they'll probably play. They practice listings aren't working well. So the question becomes to me for Kansas City, the matchup I'm looking at, it's Saquon Barkley against the Chiefs' second level run defense, not even their initial run defense, but Barkley limiting the big plays and tackling, because he's had at least 4 runs of 60 yards in his last 5 games. It's insane. I'm saying that about like a real player instead of like Madden.
Right.
But that's how good Saquon's been. But the Chiefs have been very good about limiting this. They've only allowed 42 explosive runs this year of at least 10 yards, 4th fewest in the NFL. 5th fewest yards allowed after contact, and Spags defense is notoriously great for tackling. So I think a lot of the hypothesis around Barkley, I don't really want to target his under for rushing when the Chiefs and some of their stuff rates, some of their middle of the road run metrics in the little areas are not great. But I think they do a nice job of limiting big plays. And to me, if they can limit the whoppers, keeps Barkley from scoring from the other side of the field, that'll go a long way to helping KC win the Super Bowl.
Okay, so they've done a good job of suppressing the big plays. What does that say to you as far as the betting markets go for this game?
This is the most terrifying prop that anyone's going to give out on your show all week. I think I'm going Saquon Barkley under 24.5-yard longest rush. But the fact that I looked and checked this pretty much right when the props came out, and it still stayed at -120 on the under, makes me feel a little bit better, because I know people are lining up to back Saquon in a lot of ways, and he's a very good player. I get it. But I'm going to bet instead on the best defensive coach in the sport, I think. Saquon quietly capped at 25 yards in 9 of his 20 games. So it's not like far-fetched, and I think Kansas City is an excellent matchup for it. And this is also historically not a game where you see a lot of long, explosive touchdown runs. Usually both defenses are pretty good. There's 0 25-plus yards rushes by running backs from the last 6 teams in the Super Bowl. You have to go all the way back to playoff Leonard Fournette, who eclipsed 25 yards in the Super Bowl. So I think it's a crucial part of the game plan to stop Saquon. It seems obvious to me that they want to get Jalen Hurts in passing situations, and I think limiting those whoppers is the key focus of Spags defense this week.
Good point by All Ball on YouTube, saying that you were talking about you want a no sweat kind of game, you want a relaxation kind of game, and you're betting an under on Saquon Barkley longest rush, where you're clenching the second that Jalen Hurts extends the ball in his hand to go out there. What's wrong? Like, is this a cry for help?
It's not what I want to happen. It's what I think is going to happen. I do think we're going to get a cardiac inducing game. It's just what I want to happen. It's just kind of a blowout. But I don't think I haven't gotten what I want a lot this NFL season. I'm a Raiders fan, so
right.
Feel take solace in that.
Yeah, Tom Brady. It could be worse, right? Tom Brady, true. Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, bringing it's the NFL 2015, and they're just rocking and rolling together. What could go wrong?
And who won the Heisman that year? They're bringing back Marcus Mariota too, right?
Oh, my goodness. I forgot about that. Even better. Let's go. Now I'm back in. Okay. You had me lost a bit there with like the blood stuff. I'm back in. Mariota propaganda, I'm all for. The 24.5 number for Saquon Barkley longest rush, I think that makes sense, because it is like a very interesting way to look at things here, where the Chiefs are good at suppressing big plays. They face some pretty aggressive defenses recently. The Eagles have, in the Commanders and in the Rams. So they have let up those big plays, but 24.5 is a really big number. So I think that's kind of just betting on the fact that this is a big number. Like, you can have a 24-yard touchdown and this bet could still cash. So I understand why you're going here, because this number is so big.
Right. And in our projections are actually showing quite a bit of value on unders for Saquon's rushing yard total, but I just can't get there. I understand that how I believe the game's going to play out probably is favorable to Saquon, but I'm a little afraid of like I said, those stuff metrics. And I think Saquon's a guy that gets yards after contact pretty much better than anyone not named Derrick Henry.
Okay, so Austin is on Saquon Barkley under 24.5 rushing yards, -120 if you want to have a heart attack mid-game. Austin, any other props? It can be traditional markets, props, novelty stuff. We're not talking coin toss, but anything else stand out to you for this game between the Chiefs and the Eagles?
Yeah, I've just been giving this out to anybody who listen. I love the Chiefs money line here at -120, and I was on the opposite side of the coin when I really liked the 49ers in last year's game. I feel like all their efficiency metrics trended that direction. But if you look at some of the trends around Mahomes and the Chiefs in this spot, it's very reminiscent to when sports betting was kind of first in the American football vernacular, like in the mainstream. Tom Brady had some of these trends as well. Mahomes is 33-7 when he's given 7+ days of rest. He's 16-2 in home or neutral field games in January or February. The exceptions came against Tom Brady, and then Joe Burrow got him at Arrowhead as well. Vic Fangio, I mentioned the straight up trend as well. I think when you think about how these teams have changed and evolved since the matchup 2 years ago, I actually feel like the Chiefs' weaponry is better today than it was in that particular game. The Eagles' pass rush to me has declined. So how do I weigh that against Saquon when I feel like Spags might end up taking him away? And then there's the break the Chiefs always get. I'm not talking about officials or any of that stuff. I'm talking about like a muffed punt in the Super Bowl last year. And the thing that never gets talked about with the Chiefs, they always seem to score a touchdown. They always capitalize well on those opportunities. They're situationally excellent. And I think when you look at the money line, it's basically a pick 'em minus 120. The Eagles could be arguably favorites on paper, but I think you are clinically insane to bet against this team executing this spot in a close game.
Both those statements were true. I do have the Eagles as favorite on paper. I am clinically insane and did bet the Eagles. So, I get it. But I also understand what you're saying, where you're talking about things go the Chiefs' way. That's because they're well coached.
Exactly.
Like, you kind of put yourself in good positions, and like that doesn't change. Like, it's not luck. They put themselves in good positions via their coaching staff. And like I said, I bet the Eagles. I don't have a lot of faith in when it comes to Nick Sirianni against Andy Reid in that situation. Now, Sirianni has, I think, exceeded expectations. He has committed himself very well throughout this playoff run. He's got the best, well, I don't know, it's been him and Spags, between the best defensive coordinator in football and Vic Fangio. Kellen Moore has been fine as well. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs from a coaching staff perspective, and that does scare me for sure because they're so well coached. They generate those weird bounces to go their way, and they put themselves in good positions and they capitalize, and that's just good coaching. So, yeah, as much as I am, in on the Eagles here, I understand your point where that coaching does matter, and it does manifest itself in games pretty often because they are so well coached.
Yeah, I definitely think there are arguments to both sides of the money line. Mine is a bit more trends and anecdotal. I feel like your model nailed what the analytical perspective is, which is I feel like Philadelphia has been probably the strongest team in the league since Detroit had that rash of injuries. So it should be a great game, and we've seen in this historical one score perspective that it stays close. But can I give you a player prop before I get out of here as well?
Let's do it. What's on your mind for player props in addition to Chiefs money line?
Yeah, so over at FanDuelResearch.com this weekend, I was talking a little bit about X factors, and I think one of the X factors that could help your model cash with the Eagles money line is Devontae Smith's performance here, because to me he's very crucial against a Chiefs defense that is hard to crack. The slot position has been a different story for them. They have allowed the 6th most expected points added per drop back to that area of the field this season. Pro Football Focus not very favorable of Shamari Connor or Brian Cook, who end up there quite a bit. And Devontae has over 100 more snaps than anyone else on Philadelphia in the slot this year. I'm not betting Jahan Dotson or Grant Calcaterra. I'm not sure how much they're going to play. So I know Smith's target share, 19.4%, hasn't been amazing in the playoffs, but I mentioned Saquon's been ripping off all these long runs. They haven't really needed him. I think they'll be in a position where they do need him. FanDuel Research projections have him at 54.6 median yards. So this line actually has dropped since Sunday, but I'm not afraid to buy low on a little bit of the steam moving against me. I like Smith to get at least 50-plus receiving yards from the slot.
Yeah, I believe that number was 51.5 on Sunday night. It's now down to 49.5. So there's been some movement downwards. And like you said, you can buy low. I think it was pretty efficient, honestly, at 51.5. So the downward movement to me, I think that's not going to scare me off. I don't think it goes much lower than 49.5. So Austin taking the Devontae Smith prop over 49.5 minus 110. Chiefs money line minus 120. Buying the Mahomes passing yardage 250 plus at minus 118. And also taking Saquon Barkley under 24.5 longest rush at minus 120. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Austin, I appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the game. Good luck to you sweating out that Saquon Barkley bet. We'll talk to you again in the very near future.
Sounds good, Jim. I'll see you soon, bud.
Also enjoy UFC on Saturday. I forgot that too with the pay-per-view. So we both got some fun niche sport events coming up here pretty soon.
Yep, definitely. I'm looking forward to the Daytona 500 too. We always find something on the sports calendar. We always find something.
I'm into it for sure. You can find Austin on X and Blue Sky at Swaim3. I'm on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Reminder, we are live again tomorrow on YouTube, noon Eastern, talking through same game parlays. I like at FanDuel Sportsbook. Our prop show is Thursday at 2 with Dr. Ed Fang and Megan Payton. And then Andy Nader joins us Friday, talking through all the novelty props available to you. So again, subscribe on YouTube there, but also subscribe to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane for his work in the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you betting Super Bowl 59. More discussion coming tomorrow with some SGPs at FanDuel Sportsbook. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.